Hey everybody, welcome to your online cafe. It's kind of good to be back after a short break, and especially because of the topic that we are doing today, which is related to anxiety during the pandemic. Because we are all going through that sense of anxiety, that sense of fear of unknown, that sense of helplessness. Because we are all trying to help with the best of intentions, but a lot of times we have not been able to make a difference because of the lack of facilities. So they are very strong emotions. They are very mixed emotions. We all know or somebody very close who have passed away. We all know or somebody who, as we speak, is struggling in the hospital with the second wave of pandemic, which has been extremely intense. But at the same time, there is all the more reason to take care of our own self, because unless and until we take care of ourselves, we will not be able to extend that help to our friends and family and neighbors and community and the nation, because it is really, really needed. We need to be more resilient. We need to be more together. And that's why we have Dr. Vimal Kumar with us, who will be with us shortly. And we will actually discuss all the issues related to anxiety, specifically because of the pandemic. Also, if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comment section. I'm going to get to them at the end of the show, because when we have any conversation, it's very generic, because we can't really discuss a particular situation. So if you have specific questions, we would be very happy to address them. Dr. Vimal would be very happy to address those specific questions as well, but please leave them in the comment section. But before I go there, a very happy Mother's Day to all of you, all the mothers out there. We need that strength, we need that compassion, we need that nurturing more than ever because of this unprecedented situation that we are in. Before I get onto the conversation, I have a small poem that I came across by Rudyard Kipling. It's a Mother O' Mine, and it says, "If I were hanged on the highest hill, mother o' mine, oh mother o' mine, I know whose love would follow me still. Mother o' mine, oh mother o' mine. If I were drowned in the deepest sea, mother o' mine, oh mother o' mine, I know whose tears would come down to me. Mother o' mine, oh mother o' mine. If I were damned of body and soul, I know whose prayers would make me whole. Mother o' mine, oh mother o' mine." I thought it was just so absolutely beautiful. On that note, I'm going to welcome Dr. Vimal, and let's move on with the show.
Hi,
Hi, Shalini. Hi.
Sona.
Thanks for joining. Hi, Dr. Vimal. So good to have you back. Always good to have you back.
It's good to be back.
Yes,
Thank you
and
for
so
having
much.
me.
Absolutely a pleasure, and absolutely needed, because we are in this really challenging situation, and we all find ourselves once in a while, or as we speak, in the middle of this anxiety and fear. And a lot of people are going through depression. So I'm so glad you could make it. I know how busy your schedule has been, but thank you for taking your time off. So I'm going to go right to the question, Dr. Vimal. So, we are all going through very mixed emotions right now, very strong emotions, so to speak. Sometimes a sense of helplessness, anxiety, fear. But where are the red flags? Red flags, like how do you know that you have pandemic anxiety? What are the symptoms that you need to look for to know that it's time for you to seek help?
Okay, to set the context, I'd like to begin with saying that human beings are four dimensional and we operate at the emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual dimensions. Um, Currently, COVID is mental, physical, and an emotional struggle. And when the emotional part of us is affected, so is the spiritual part automatically. Um, Great health is an ability to digest our experiences at all four dimensions. So when we talk about what we're going through, we're talking about the ability to digest or metabolize experiences, to take whatever is given in any moment, any thought, feeling, or sensation, any cruel words that are spoken, kind acts that are done, humiliating falls that we have, and and our ability to be able to transform that by chewing it, mashing it, churning it, breaking it down into a stream of energy that may or may not be capable of nourishing our ongoing bodily becoming. So, when I talk about bodily becoming, I will be addressing it at all four levels, like I mentioned. It's important to set the context because we are constantly wiring and firing as our experiences comprise of perceptions and interpretations to create our thoughts. And thoughts, like I have mentioned before, generate feelings, and feelings generate behavior. And our beliefs come from our social conditioning, and beliefs influence what we think. The reason I'm mentioning this here is because as we go along, as Sonal and I talk along, um, we need to be clear about what is it that we're talking about, because there is a lot of information on the internet, and because this is an exploration space for all of us, none of us have been prepared to this for this. So we are all trying to figure out our own truths. Um, Having said that, human beings um, have the human brain has over 60,000 thoughts a day, and most of these are on autopilot and are not necessarily positive. They are conditioned by society, social media, news channels, and cultural beliefs. And we can choose the content around which we would like to repeat our thoughts. Um, so कितना सोचता हूँ मैं, लेकिन क्या सोचता हूँ कि मैं क्या सोचता हूँ. So be mindful about what you're thinking about. If we were to chart out our 60,000 thoughts by day end, this is the one thing that we all need to do at this point of time, because we have overwhelming inflow of information.
Yeah.
So the red flags to watch out for are obsessive thoughts, and if you are losing control over what you are thinking, loss of appetite, and if you have trouble sleeping, flashbacks or nightmares while you're asleep affecting the quality of your sleep, shallow or oppressed breathing and chest pain, frequent panic attacks, unexplained night or day sweats and body ache, or consistent headaches. There could be a feeling of increasing boredom and paranoia, or the traumas, like you feel traumatized by hearing other people's griefs and the struggle that they are going through. The feeling of increasing loneliness, the constant feeling of fatigue in the body and mind. And I've also heard people say, I'm so done with this. I'm just so done with this. I'm so done with the isolation. I'm so done with the constant news. I'm so done with the unpredictability. If so, when though I'm going to go on with the red flags, but this is not in isolation. None of these are red flags if they're in isolation, because we all have good days and we have bad days.
Right.
If it is a gamut of some of the things that I'm mentioning, then it is of concern and it becomes a red flag. Other than that, it is not a red flag.
Right.
There is also a sense of increasing addiction to screen time. So, watching TV, phone, or social media, it poses a threat to addiction. If you're consuming more cigarettes and more alcohol or any other substances than you have ever done before, that's a red flag too. If you have a predisposition of a mental condition like depression or bipolar, and if the condition is worsening, uh, that is a red flag you might want to watch out for and recheck for medication with your psychiatrist or reach out to a mental health worker. Lack of physical activity plus lack of mental engagement is of rising concern and is detrimental for everyone, especially for people who have a predisposition of some sort of mental health issue. If you're showing or avoiding people, if you're showing behavior of avoidant behavior towards people. For instance, if people are reaching out to you and you don't want to talk on the phone, or you don't want to have a video chat with anybody, and you're constantly irritated with people around you and for you, and people around you and for the people who you care for, that raises a little bit of a concern as well. Constant confusion and poor concentration, cold sweats and trembling, breaking into cries for no apparent reasons, having a long term impending sense of danger, panic, or doom. These are the red flags that I can think of, Sonal.
Okay. Okay. Now, there is also something called COVID-19 anxiety syndrome. Now, what you described, is that what COVID-19 anxiety syndrome is, or that's different from the regular anxiety?
Okay, so slightly different, but pretty similar in some bits and parts. A COVID 19 anxiety syndrome. So let's begin with explaining what a syndrome is. A syndrome is usually defined as a group of symptoms which consistently occur together, or a condition which is characterized by a set of associated symptoms. So it's a large gamut of symptoms put together, and if they're constant and consistent, and um, they grow intense with time, that is what we would be concerned about, it becoming a syndrome.
Okay.
So if you're anxious about anxiety, for example, uh, that's where a syndrome could be born. If you're demotivated and unenthused, and the feeling low is consistent over days and weeks or months, maybe, that's a concern for the syndrome. Frequent panic attacks, I had mentioned as one of the red flags as well, because of the heightened fear due to the pandemic, could also collaborate in this. Um, if you believe if you believe that happiness is a mandate, and that it needs to be, that I need to be happy every single day of my life, and that belief can and if it's not okay if I'm sad, or I'm grieved, or I am affected by what's going around, that's not okay. So before, just to clarify here, that I do hear a lot of um, times people say, I'm super stressed, I'm super anxious. Um, I sometimes get a sense that, these two words have become very common use. And
Yeah.
I don't think people are understanding the gravity of the situation when these words are used. Because I remember at one point of time, everybody went around saying they're depressed, even if they were feeling low for 2 days.
Yeah.
Um, Words have power. Please do not use words like stress and anxiety. It's okay to feel sad or angry or jealous or bitterness, um, just generally feeling low. We are human. Let's just behave like humans and not expect ourselves to be robots or machines. We can be imperfect. Like I said, none of us know what's going on. So it's okay to embrace our imperfections,
Yeah.
at,
Absolutely.
and at the same time try and change things about us which we wish to change. Someone who has had COVID and has recovered, yet may experience a sense of feeling lost, confused, depressed, loss of interest, social withdrawal, post ICU stress and trauma. This would come under the COVID syndrome as well. There is also something known as a post COVID syndrome specifically.
Post-COVID syndrome. I was going to
Yeah,
come to that.
which
I had that
yeah,
question. Yes. Correct.
okay. So which affects the heart, the lungs, and the brain physically, and it ranges from the symptoms of that range from brain fog to inflammatory lung and heart related issues, which are more physical in nature, which will cause a lot of discomfort in the body, enough for the person to realize that something's not okay, and you might want to, reach out to a doctor. So people who are interested can read about that. And new studies are regularly being published on various relevant platforms regarding the post COVID syndrome.
Yeah. Okay. Now, how do we deal with the anxiety, with the pandemic anxiety, in the best possible way in the current scenario, in a healthy way, so that at least we are centered enough to actually take care of others who are in need. So, what can one do to make yourself not everybody actually, first of all, even to realize whether we have the symptom. And one thing that you actually said, which is there's a difference between feeling feeling that once in a while versus feeling that gamut of syndrome for an extended period of time. So I'm going to make that very clear that if you feel those symptoms over and over again, and all the gamut of symptoms, then there is a need for you to concern about. Otherwise, we are all humans, and it's an expression that we need to have. So it's okay for us to feel low once in a while. So I'm not talking about those aspects, but if you do realize that you are going through like a chronic anxiety, what can one do to handle themselves?
Yeah. So there are two fundamental fears that human beings have, and that is what has given rise to so much of fear and anxiety. So one of them is the fear of death. The other is the fear of human beings and for human beings that we love. And there is fear, there is anxiety and uncertainty, which is unparalleled in a long, long time in of human history. So yes, there is gravity to it. It is a real problem. However, we still need to manage our own little world, which lives in our head and in our home. So to begin with, think about what can we control. Focusing on what you can control diffuses anxiety and the fear of uncertainty. To know you are not alone. Use social support. Video chats and phone calls are a great way of keeping connected, knowing about other people. It keeps you informed that you're not the only person, and that does make a difference. It's not like that, which does not mean that we're wishing well for the other person, we're wishing ill for the other person. It just means that um, there is someone else who's also going through the pain. And so, whatever I'm feeling is okay because other people are feeling the same. Because at some level human beings do have herd mentality, so it helps them to, it helps all of us to kind of just know that there is someone else who also is feeling sad and grieved and angry. um, Stay away from the overwhelming constant inflow of information and news about the pandemic.
Yeah.
There is so much harm being caused by the constant consumption of negative news. See, I'm not saying that the news is not important or keeping yourself updated is not important, but there needs to be a limit. Please only consume the amount that you need to know to keep informed. You do not need to consume it constantly. Work yourself to anticipatory anxiety and then say, I can't handle this anymore. Because each one of us has a threshold. It's a personal threshold. We need to respect that threshold. So do not constantly keep going back to the phone or social media to check updates every 15 minutes, half an hour, or 1 hour. Once in a day for 10-15 minutes is enough
Right.
to make sure that you're doing your best to deal with whatever situation you have at hand is a very profound way of keeping your mind in the present and also paying attention to yourself rather than what's going on around you. Whatever is going on around you is information, but your reality resides in your life in the moment. So, constantly, we need to work on bringing that attention back to ourselves. It's okay to focus and enjoy making a cup of tea or cup of coffee and just pay attention to it
Yeah.
rather
Be
than,
fully aware. Yeah. Be fully aware of moment to moment. Yeah.
yes, yeah. Because if we are constantly thinking about someone who's lost someone, and this is all around us, each one of us has personal relationships. It's very different from last year, because last year I think it was more unreal, like it was happening to people we didn't know, or was happening very far away from us. But now it's all closed in. It's
Yes.
happening to the next door neighbor, it's happening in our own houses. There's I think every person knows someone who's going through it, if they're not going through it themselves, or the close family members.
Yeah, that's right.
So there's a lot of realism in the fear now, and so we need to be more careful, and we need to be kinder and gentler with ourselves. So this is what I was going to say next: is be gentle with yourself. You will have good and bad days, and that's okay. If there is loss, there is sadness, there's grief, there are things happening around you, there is so much of uncertainty, we don't know what's going to happen next. It's You're not going to be able to feel happy. So it's, just accept it. It's okay. We're going to just manage the way we are. As long as we focus on what we have to do for the day, that's a good day.
Yeah.
So bring down your expectations with yourself. You may feel lost and grieved for things that you were looking forward to. For example, graduation. Someone was to graduate. They had a travel plan. Someone had a new business venture that hasn't taken off, or did take off and then completely shut down because of the limitations and conditions. Weddings, other family events they may have been in the agenda, and they have not happened, so it's a loss of plan, and we can't reconfigure a date to it either, because we don't know when things are going to improve. All I need to say, yes, it's a loss, but it's okay, because as long as you feel sadness and you're able to gather yourself and then just say, it'll happen when it'll happen, let's just stick to the moment. Because it's not just us, it's not just three people, it's the entire world. So just, I think, lowering down your expectations and just accepting the situation instead of channeling your energy and resisting it would make a lot of difference to bringing down anxiety. Structure to your day and prioritization of yourself is super important at this point of time. We need to have a routine in place, to have the discipline. Exercise, eating a healthy diet, and having a sleep routine helps tremendously. It's um, it's common, but there are a lot of people who are not doing it, and it's having effects on health other than contracting the virus. One needs to keep ongoing engagements happening. um, Plan to do all the things you once wanted to. Maybe organize old photographs, redoing or rearranging your files, your plants on the balcony, cupboards, drawers, wardrobes, throw away things that you don't want. We need to do things like there was a time when we would have a weekend plan to socialize, to go for a movie, meet a friend over coffee. We had ongoing engagements. Now we need to have ongoing engagements within our house. So you need to find things to do within the area that you're confined to. And that's okay too, because it's a passing phase. And this too shall pass. Um, Meditate, pray, do yoga, practice deep breathing exercises, practice any other form of centering activity that you know of. I do know of some people who do chants, and chanting centers them. So anything that you are familiar with, please do that. Grounding is very important as well. Grounding is very important for anxiety. And by grounding, I mean walking bare feet on the
Yes.
grass or the balcony floor, engage in gardening activities. Basically, it's the contact with soil that is healing for anxiety. So get in touch with the soil in some way. If people are interested in pottery, that's a great thing for to remove anxiety. Be kind to people around you. It
Yeah.
builds on your kindness and generosity quotient, because the best way to get is to give.
Yeah.
Um,
There's a lot of
one,
need.
sorry,
Please go ahead.
one last thing. Do not, please do not discuss the pandemic with everyone you speak to. Have discussions around other subjects, and to get a feel of normalcy and worldview, um, have other discussions. There's still things happening in the world. Every conversation and every news and everything does not need to be about the pandemic. Sorry,
Yeah.
Sonal,
Yeah.
you were
So it
saying
is.
something.
No, I was actually I was going to ask you about grounding because suddenly, this has become like a thing, grounding, because even in the Western world, they are actually having talk shows, like in the sense like they're having seminars only about grounding, and they're packaging it in a way which is actually so beautiful, because we as Indians have always done it, but we have never sort of like a put a we have never
Yeah.
defined it as grounding, and we have never discussed it in great detail. So when you talk about grounding, I would like to know a little bit more about what it actually does. It connects you to the soil, as you said, and how
Yeah.
does it affect in healing?
So actually, if we go to back to our ancient scriptures and our ancient way of living, when people were looking for the higher purpose in life, they would go to the jungles. They would meditate in the jungles. Um, there was also a thing known as the mud therapy. I think it still happens in certain parts of the world,
Mud
where if
therapy.
there was any kind of infection, especially stomach ache or nazla zukam वगैरह ठीक करने के लिए, they would actually just lay you on the ground and then cover you with wet clay, and
Acha.
that would rid you of the infection. It was also used to treat psoriasis and eczema and bacterial infections of the skin.
Okay.
So it's yoga is a derivative of like yoga is about balance. So
Yeah.
if you do yoga, usually in the earlier days it was done on the floor or especially in the open fields, because it would keep you in contact with the soil. So I do not know the origin of the concept of grounding, but I do know that it is used um, in many ways to treat anxiety,
Okay. Okay.
because
Yeah.
it has that centering effect, and it's also very similar to certain y- yoga postures.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. I know I'm going off track because we were not. I just got intrigued because I've heard so much about grounding, and I'm in a habit of just barefoot walking. It just makes you very healed, and I think it's also about that you're connecting to the earth's energy.
yeah,
So whenever you're touching some form of earth, soil, that
yeah,
energy gets transmitted to you, and that
yes,
is how the healing might be happening. Anyway, now
yeah.
going back to the COVID, earlier, as you talked about the post-COVID syndrome, I would like to talk a little bit more about that, as to what that is and how can we help people with post-COVID syndrome, because I think a lot of people are undergoing that in spite of. So there are there are two aspects to it. One, people who are going through the pandemic, who are suffering from COVID, and then people do recover, but they're still going through a lot of sort of anxiety related to post-COVID syndrome. So can you address both of them?
Okay. Yeah, and they're quite interlinked as well. They are interdependent. So whatever I'm saying or I'm going to say is based on my experience of having spoken to a lot of people. This does not qualify as a theory or a theory around COVID. This is purely my experience, and it's obviously only limited to the data, like in data meaning the number of people I interact with.
Right.
So please do not take this as an established, proven theory. We are not trying to prove anything here. So, how, coming back to Sonal's question, is how can we help others to have, how can we help others? I feel that the basic fundamental need for every human being is acceptance. We all look for acknowledgement, acceptance. जब मेरे को तकलीफ हो तो कोई मेरे को सहरा दे, कोई just the feeling that someone's there, I think, is of immense significance. So though an individual may be in isolation, or please engage that person in daily activities through video calls, or ask them to go out and sit in a balcony. Now this will obviously depend on the kind of house one lives in and how the person is isolated, and if possible, let allow them to move around in the house in some way or the other. Encourage them to have a routine in even if they are in isolation. um, it's not the physical isolation that hurts, it is the unavailability of the human contact that hurts. So
Right.
the avoidance messages of things like leaving the food outside the door, or not including them into the family decision making because they're sick. Those are the kind of things that leave the scars, and those are the things that kind of lead to the post COVID social withdrawal as well. um, I'm not accusing anybody. I mean, I know everybody does it in a different way, and we all understand that the food does need to be left outside, and the contact cannot be made. And so I am not crossing any boundaries here by saying that do that, but all I'm saying is do it in the nicest way possible, and reduce as much of how the person can feel not wanted. So reduce the unwanted feeling to make it feel wanted, and treat it like a phase because it's going to get over in 2 weeks. Um, Rebuild on resources that are available rather than paying attention to everything that's gone amiss, because we still do have some resources. We have people, we have our home, we are safe. Build on those resources. There are a lot of things to do if you look for things to do. You can help people to find new avenues of employment if you want to be of help to someone. You can help people plan and structure their lives. And I don't mean like you don't have to do it by giving the money. You can if you want, but you don't have to do it by giving something. The best gift you can give someone and yourself is time. So the best way to be there for someone would be just to be supportive, not to be preachy. And it's okay for people to talk about their jealousies, anger, loss, grief. And it's just a human way of processing whatever we are going through, at some level or the other, by making a conversation. Just be there. Even if you don't have anything to say, it's okay to be silent. Sometimes silence can be equally or more powerful than words are. And all you need is a sense of togetherness, a sense of connectedness, a sense of belongingness and rootedness. So that is what you can do to support people. Um, Sorry, Sonal, what was the other question you asked?
I was asking
People.
about the post COVID syndrome. So there are two kinds of syndrome, right? One is when the person is going through the COVID situation, and one is when they get past it, they still feel a sense of anxiety, which is the post COVID syndrome. So I think you've kind of addressed both, unless there is something more to be added.
Yeah, well, I can say a few more things. Um, for like, so people who have COVID and are experiencing it in many, I think the experience of COVID is very personal and it's different for different people. So there's some people who are asymptomatic. They you know
Right.
they just go through it. They whiz through it. They don't really feel anything. Some people have mild or moderate symptoms, and there are others who have critical symptoms. Now, people who have someone close to them and are critical and are going through an experience, they will experience heightened fear, they will be anxious, they will be sad, there will be that sense of threat and danger which will increase. It will happen. You can pay more attention, but the only thing I would suggest at that point of time is, if possible, in the midst of the crisis as well, do try and take care and be nice to yourself, because only when you are there for your loved one in one healthy peace, you would be able to take care of that person better. If you retain your, because if you're anxious, you're going to pass on that anxiety. If you're anxious, your decision making will be affected. um, so try and minimize the anxiety around it so that you're more effective in whatever you are able to do for that person and for yourself. um, because if you retain your emotional, mental, and physical energy levels, your performance will be better. I know it's hard, but it's possible.
Yeah.
Less than critical is easier to manage, though there is unpredictability around that too. But however, I think it gets better as it gets more reassuring with improvement. Usually, after the first week, it tends to get better. And recovered, they people who have recovered, they still go through good and bad days, and it's okay for them to go. Don't panic when they have a bad day. It is a part of the recovery process, unless there's something super alarming about the symptoms. But there will be days which are going to be good and bad, so it's okay to accept it, and just okay to be consistent about the routine and get as much discipline into place as possible. um, and like I mentioned, and Sonal's mentioned a couple of times, the post COVID syndrome, it is slow. It's a physical recovery and it does take time. So allow that time to happen. Um, Lastly, I would like to say that, our emotions remain lodged. I'm just getting a sense that I may be sounding very preachy about remaining calm during such high anxiety times, but I want to give a context to why I'm saying this. Because our emotions remain lodged in our throats and bellies and hearts and limbs, and if they're and they remain undigested for too long, they're going to cause depression and despair. And the way out is to acknowledge the stuck feelings, and to create movement, and to let go, and to move forward. um, you need to be prepared for the next uh, upcoming life experience, because that is what life is. It moves on, it goes on to the next experience. So along with taking care of the other, try and go for a walk, and try and make contact with nature to center yourself, and please remain as disciplined as possible. You will, these are things probably which are being said by everyone, but if you do it, you
It
will
really
realize the importance and value of it only from your own experience.
I can certainly vouch for that, Dr. Vimal, actually, because one thing that really works is meditation. I mean, at least for me, it really, really centers me, and so I can vouch for that. And routine, routine definitely helps because it kind of gives you in spite of being in everybody's kind of in their own families and isolated places, but if you give yourself a routine, it gives you a sense of purpose also, that you know that you need to take care of these aspects. So if there is a sense of purpose, then it comes, then it gives you that drive also to move on day to day. And I think right now we need to literally take every day as it comes, because every day is different. So yeah.
Yes, yes,
You know, one
absolutely.
one other aspect that I really want to talk to you about is that I've actually heard from people, and I've myself been in that situation, is when you're trying to help somebody, right? You are trying your best, but with the current scenario, with the facilities are not available, sometimes the medicines are not available, so the people who are trying to help feel a sense of helplessness in spite of the best intentions. And that's a different kind of exhaustion that everybody is going through. because at this point in time, like in any case, the emotions are way too heightened. The people are not as centered as they normally would be, and then that helplessness takes over. So there is a different kind of exhaustion that's also setting into the people who are trying to help. So any suggestions, any tips on that aspect?
Yes, of course. I experience that too because I would like to be of help to people, and sometimes I find that I'm not able to, and sometimes it's also that the other person, though has asked for help, but is not ready to receive it in the way you're capable or available to give. So
True.
that's another dimension as well.
True.
However, the way I configure it in my head is I believe that my belief is that there are three compartments to the world. One is taken care of by God, which is God's business or nature's bus- business, or you can say is taken care of by the cosmic laws or the divine intelligence, whatever you would like to call it. The other is the other person's business, and the third is my business, or you could reverse it and say one, two, three. um, I can only do what falls in my arena. I
Absolutely.
cannot do anything that does not fall in my arena. I can try, but I can only try. My trial and error and help is also within the limitations of my potential and my
True.
intention. So it's okay to know where to stop. I think most of us don't know where to draw the line and stop.
That's right.
So it's maybe, when if you're looking for medicines, you have tried your best. If you made 10 calls, 20 calls, if you tried for a room for someone or tried for oxygen for someone, you have done your job. If you're not able to get it, it's okay to stop. Maybe somebody else will find it for them,
Yeah.
or maybe by then they don't need it, even better.
Yeah. So we need to draw our own boundaries actually. We need to have our own personal boundaries for our own self as to, how far you want to go and not feel bad about if you cannot cross a certain boundary. I always,
Yes.
I think filtering really, really helps. I can again vouch for that aspect that there is only so much you can do. And once you have done your best, just take a back seat
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
let it unfold, I think.
Yeah, this is what I can do, and that's about it. There's no point in beating yourself up about it. There is, and then setting yourself up for more and more disappointment, because then you are just disappointed with yourself, and the way it's going to show up in behavior is by you being apologetic for who you are as a person.
Yeah.
So, which is not required.
Yeah. We don't need to attach our own self worth to
Yeah,
how much we're being able to help. Actually, that's the other problem,
absolutely.
helping, because everybody's home and everybody's
Yeah.
isolated. A lot of time we are actually attaching that our worth to being able to help, which again I think is a mismatched expectation, because you know what, there's only so much you can
Yeah,
do. So
yeah.
just try your
We
best.
don't need to impress anyone. We are not there
Correct.
to impress anyone. It takes a
Yeah.
whole load off the minute you say, I don't need to impress anyone. I'll just do the best I can.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, actually, Dr. Vimal, I have pretty much asked all the questions that I had. If there is anything that you would like to, because I don't see any questions, guys, if there are any questions, this is the time for you to leave it on the comment section, and I will pick that thread up. But Dr. Vimal, do you have anything to say to the audience before I wrap up the show?
I would just like to say that there is no absolute right or wrong way to go about this. There is no rule book. We are exploring, we are discovering, and we are creating a customized, new, normal, new ways, new truths for each one of us. And so be kind to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, I think there's one more thing that is psychologically happening with everybody around is I feel that see, everybody's situation is different. I keep saying this line, which I really which is actually true, that we are all facing the same storm, but we are on different boats. Some of them have a really tough time. Some of them not so tough time. Some of them are really okay. I don't think we need to. I think we have to take everything as an acceptance to whatever the situation is. If you're on a good boat, good for you. You don't need to feel guilty. If you're on a really bad situation, then like again, you need to accept the situation. You can't really compare with anybody else's situation. I think it is such a psychologically challenging time for everybody that we have to be completely accepting of our own worlds as it is, and it that really helps. I feel not that I'm a psychologist, but it's just my own perception about how it should be.
Yeah, but psychology is nothing but human experience, and we are having an intense one for the time being.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So I agree with you, Sonal, completely that there is no need to compare, and um, and there is a lot to be grateful for.
lots.
So
Yeah,
pay attention to what we can be grateful for.
yeah,
It's okay to look at things that we don't have, but it's very important to look at things that we do have and be grateful for that, because we can only build upon what we have.
yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, on that note, thank you so much, Dr. Vimal, for being here. It was a very, very informative session as always, and thank you for taking the time out in spite of your busy schedule. And thank you everybody for joining in. I see a lot of people saying hi, hi Viralji, hi Mom, hi Priyanka, hi Prahladji. Uh, so please stay safe, stay healthy. I know it's a cliche, but that's what it is, like, except for what it is, and let's ride this wave together, and we will get through this. So thank you. Hi Urmila. Thank you all for joining in. If you have joined in late, then there is a recording available on Facebook and YouTube both. You can please go ahead and see it again. This is Jess Onal signing off. See you next week again. Thank you. Bye
Thank
everybody.
you. Bye.